Hello everyone, Fred here. In this installment of TPP Dynamite, I'm going to be reviewing episode 1 of CSI Vegas' season 2, She's Gone. First things first though, if you haven't already, let me encourage you to subscribe to my channel. I'm an author of adult and young adult mystery novels. To date, I've released 3 books, The Women in White, The Lethal List, and most recently, Textbook Murder. All of them are on sale now, and there are purchase links in my video description below. With that in mind, and without further ado, welcome to my spoiler-filled review of CSI Vegas Season 2, Episode 1, She's Gone. The episode opens with a monologue by Maxine Roby where she reflects on the nature of her job as well as life and death to the newly returned Catherine Willows as a way of asking Catherine why she wants to return to being a CSI. Catherine dishes out nebulous reasons about how the newly departed Gil Grissom said that Max's team was shorthanded and how she herself has nothing but time on her hands since she stepped away from day-to-day operations at the Eclipse Casino the previous year and was recently kicked off of the board. Max senses that she's not getting the full story, but she reads Catherine into her team anyway. The two of them then head to a crime scene where Josh Folsom reintroduces himself to Catherine over the body of a dominatrix named Lynn Zobrist. A new detective named Serena Chavez, who just so happens to be Josh's new girlfriend of 2 months, shows up. Then Max and Catherine discover that Lynn's killer not only stabbed her to death with a mirror shard, but also rigged up one room in her home so that it appears to be made entirely out of mirrors. Because this is CSI and there must always be a weirdly creepy element to almost every element of a CSI show. While Max and Catherine talk through the hows and whys and the technical elements of Lynn's death, another new guy named Bo Finato finds blood evidence under the mirrored floor. Josh serves up some exposition when he makes clear that Gil and Sarah are currently living on a boat in another part of the world. Then Catherine ghosts the team to go looking for a woman named Grace. At this point, it becomes pretty clear to the audience that finding this woman is most probably a big part of why Catherine decided to return to work as a CSI. Ali Rajan comes back from a Los Angeles-based FBI training program that she apparently joined in the year since season 1 and meets Josh at the crime scene. She finds out about Josh's thing with Serena just about as soon as she can tell him that she's planning to finish up her program online and that she's not going back to LA because it's quote-unquote too far away. Serena makes a point of telling Ali that she's heard quote-unquote so much about Ali from Josh. Ali later uses her FBI training to help the team make a 3D map of the crime scene's DNA evidence, which includes a massive older blood stain from 5 years prior. And just a little aside here, it is way too convenient that Ali seems to have learned just the forensic specialization needed to crack this case during her time with the FBI. On a separate note, I've loved CSI Vegas' focus on the newest and most cutting-edge crime-busting technology of our time, but I've always seen it as a bit of a plot hole how an underfunded city crime lab would have automatic and unfettered access to that exact technology. Anyway, Serena interviews Lynn's longtime psychiatrist, who tells her that the person who attacked Lynn 5 years ago can't be her killer because that person is dead. Max and Catherine, meanwhile, question some of Lynn's clients. One of them, a maladjusted man named Alan Herskovitz, seems to have an itching problem and sadly says that he regrets Lynn's death because her time with him made him feel normal. Ali later asks Josh why he never mentioned his relationship with Serena to her in the 2 months that it's been going on. It's a very good question, and Josh's reasons are both murky and plot contrived. Catherine later points out to the two of them that one blood trail in Ali's crime scene reconstruction depicts the killer steering Lynn's body around some sort of object that was stolen from the scene and that could probably identify it. Catherine and Josh go back to Lynn's home and find the missing evidence burned in a fire pit. Bo works his own chemical magic to actually peel off a burn layer and reveal evidence that Lynn's killer sheds skin cream during the attack. Back at the lab, Catherine becomes distracted when she thinks that she sees Grace again. Meanwhile, Max recalls that Alan Herskovitz was scratching himself during his interview and probably wore skin cream to help his condition. The CSIs later tear his home apart, only to find evidence that he's hunting down other people and plans to target a man named Lamont Moore next. Serena catches up to Alan just as he's planning to kill Lamont in his sleep. Alan escapes capture by Serena, but leaves behind a bloody cloth as he makes his escape. It turns out that Lamont has similar scars on his temple to ones that the CSIs had noticed that Lynn had, and which indicate that they've both been through electroconvulsive therapy. When the CSIs investigate further, they realize that Moore and Lynn were treated by the same doctor when they were younger. A doctor whose process included keeping them in a room with mirrors everywhere. Max confirms that the blood on the cloth is Alan's and came from a wound that he got while killing Lynn and which was slowly becoming gangrenous. The police and the CSIs track him easily down to a hospital where he takes a hostage in order to escape. He admits to killing Lynn and trying to kill Lamont for vague reasons associated with the brutal therapy that he and Lynn and Lamont received when they were younger. When he realizes that he's outnumbered, outmatched, and outgunned, he surrenders to arrest but says that it's all by design. While Josh is in bed with Serena later, he texts Allie and tells her that he wants to talk. Meanwhile, Max confronts Catherine and tells her that they need to have a real discussion about why Catherine is back as a CSI and what she wants. Catherine comes clean and tells Max that she wants to use her position as a CSI to search for a lady named Grace. Grace is a young woman from the wrong side of the tracks in whom Catherine saw plenty of herself. Grace was operating as a stripper until Catherine took an interest in her, mentoring her through criminology classes at West Las Vegas University and getting her a proper job at the Eclipse. The investment was paying off in that Grace was taking off as a student and was very interested in becoming a CSI. However, Grace suddenly went missing 3 weeks ago. When Catherine began asking questions about Grace, the Eclipse's leadership not only brushed it under the rug, but also pushed her out of her board position. So Catherine wants not only to find Grace, but also to learn what the Eclipse's leadership is covering up regarding her disappearance. As Catherine talks, we, the viewers, are treated to a final shot of someone dropping off a body in the desert that may or may not be Grace's. The end. So, here are my thoughts. Others may feel differently, but I've honestly had just about enough of the Allie-Josh drama. I get that the writers are basically trying to portray their relationship as essentially the second coming of the Grissom-Sarah dynamic, but it just has not been working for me. Allie and Josh are decent leads, but they're nowhere near as compelling as Grissom and Sarah, and their reasons for staying apart haven't been as compelling either. So watching their slow-boiled relationship doesn't come off to me as an exercise in patience that'll be rewarded in due time, so much as an exercise in annoyance that makes me want to stop watching out of frustration. All signs last season pointed towards their finally getting together. Then this episode blindsided us by flipping the script on last season and giving Josh the girlfriend while leaving Allie to be the disapproving but silent love interest. This episode opens after last season's time skip and reveals that in that time, Allie fled to Vegas to train with the FBI in Los Angeles because reasons. Meanwhile, Josh has gotten into another relationship with a stereotypically sweet new character and hasn't told Allie for months because reasons, which sets up a love triangle that I'm sure it'll take all season to solve, given that Ariana Guerra's Serena character will be in the main cast on the show for this year. And that's yet another negative check mark in my book. I have never truly been impressed with the love triangle trope, mainly because of how poorly they're usually executed, with tragic miscommunication on all sides, with all-around predictable story beats that you can often see coming a mile away, and with at least one perfectly good person who almost always ends up getting stiffed in the end. It's my personal opinion that love triangles had a heyday during which they worked well enough in film, generally network TV, and literature during the late 2000s and early to mid 2010s, but went the way of the dinosaur shortly thereafter. They've been done to death, almost every version is predictable now, and the whole concept really needs to end in my book. Marge Helgenberger's Catherine Willows is as ageless and gorgeous and charming as ever, and having her back after all of these years is a treat almost as sweet as having Grissom back last season and watching him and Sarah as a team again. It also seems that the writers and executive producers on this show are developing something of a pattern. Last season's serialized mystery was about Grissom and Sarah's work to clear ex-CSI Hodges' name and expose a big bad who was out to ruin the Las Vegas crime lab. It seems that at least one major thread this season will feature Catherine as the legacy character who's out to solve a big mystery, the maybe death of her protege Grace, and whatever shady connections the Eclipse might have to it. I do have to say though that as things stand, I was not as blown away by the introduction of Catherine's mystery as I was by the introduction of Grissom and Sarah's. Grissom and Sarah's mystery started with an assassination attempt on Jim Brass and compelling evidence that ex-CSI Hodges might well have been faking evidence for a great part of his CSI career. It was a major, mind-blowing story revolving almost exclusively around legacy characters. Meanwhile, the Catherine mystery looks right now like it'll be just about her investigating corruption at a casino and trying to figure out whatever happened to a no-name character about whom I can't even care because I never even saw or heard of her before Catherine's exposition dump at the end of this episode. It also looks like the serial killer teased at the end of last season might be featured in a separate ongoing story thread revolving at least in part around Alan Herskovitz, the murderer from this episode. When Alan's home was searched, the audience could see that he had plenty of weird stuff around, including some sort of postcard with weird scribbles in it, like those that last season's teased serial killer was making. I'm pretty sure that writers didn't introduce all of that or Alan's poorly defined motives for murder without planning to pay it all off later. Probably the easiest way to tie the new serial killer to Alan would be to say that the killer was yet another member of the group of young people who was driven crazy by electroconvulsive therapy, but I think it's still too early to tell which directions the writers will take with that whole ordeal. Okay, down to brass tacks. CSI Vegas's second season opener is a fair enough episode that does a decent but not great job of establishing a new status quo and drumming up interest for what will probably come next. I give CSI Vegas Season 2, Episode 1, She's Gone, 3 Cronuts out of 5. At any rate, tell me what you think in the comments below. If you like this video, don't forget to leave a like, click subscribe, and please ring that bell. So long.